So here's what the Ninjago crew needs to do going forward. Don't get complacent. Keep pushing forward like Dragons Rising Season 1 did. Continue progressing the characters in meaningful ways. If the Ninjago crew can maintain the quality of Dragons Rising Season 1 going forward and even expand on it, then Ninjago will have its new peak. They did it. They did it. Ninjago Dragons Rising's first season wasn't just a fluke. The Ninjago crew has maintained the excellent quality of Dragons Rising Season 1 and pushed the stories of the characters into bold new directions, previously unseen by even Ninjago's best seasons. I'm not sure if I'd say Ninjago has hit its new all-time peak just yet, but what I would say is that Dragons Rising's second season is absolutely fantastic, and stands alongside the likes of Hunted and Sons of Garmadon as some of the best Ninjago content to ever release. Dragons Rising Season 2 isn't perfect, but it's incredible in all of the most important areas for me. And I wanted to take a video to discuss how much I love this season, along with the areas here and there where I do think it falls short a little bit. Because although I don't think this season is perfect, I think it gets pretty close. So straight off the bat, I think structurally, this is one of the weirdest seasons to ever come out of the Ninjago franchise. Since Dragons Rising Season 1, Ninjago seasons have been produced with the idea of getting split into two parts in mind. In each season of Dragons Rising, Episode 10 will be a mid-season finale, where a big shift in the plot happens that lays the groundwork for the subsequent 10 episodes, constituting part 2 of a season. For example, in Dragons Rising Season 1, this event was Beatrix herself getting involved in the fight against the ninja, spurring on the ninja's quest to obtain the dragon energy cores to stop the mergequakes. Despite having that mid-season shift, both parts of Season 1 still felt very connected to me. However, the two parts of Season 2 feel way more radically different than Season 1's, and as a result, there is a bit of a disconnect there. Although it's an interesting disconnect, because it doesn't really hurt the season for me. It's a disconnect less in terms of the actual story being told, and more in terms of the theming and the art direction. This season's two parts both focus on different things. Season 2 Part 1 is about the Blood Moon, while Season 2's second part is about the Tournament of the Sources. And there are times where I will be watching a Part 2 episode and think, I do kind of wish it was more in line with Part 1 visually and tonally. But in the areas where it's truly important, the story, the themes, the two parts of Dragons Rising Season 2 feel very connected. Season 2's theme is secrets, and I think both parts of the season handle that theme well. Both halves of the season also focus on the ninja fighting Raz's wolf clan, with the opposition between the Rising Dragon and Shatterspin fighting techniques being a huge motif. And most importantly to me, the two storylines are connected together well by combined being about how Arin's self-worth issues slowly consume him. So the disconnect never becomes a problem for me outright, it's just kind of really odd. I don't think I've ever seen a piece of media be so simultaneously disconnected and also well connected. And I think this season is super deserving of praise for taking two themes that could have been their own individual seasons and combining them into a whole product that feels coherent and connected. I think being able to stay coherent whilst juggling that amount of stuff is a huge accomplishment writing-wise. And it also helps that all of the stuff in question is really good. In this season, we go from an incredibly well-executed, dread-inducing slow burn to the Blood Moon, to a comparatively super high-energy tournament-stroke-murder mystery arc. Out of these two halves of the season, I definitely do prefer the Blood Moon half, even if just because it was the first piece of Ninjago media to ever release that made me feel genuinely uncomfortable in a good way. Those first 10 episodes did a really good job at building up to and making you dread the Blood Moon. And whilst I think the first 10 episodes are definitely the best half of the season, I think the second half, focusing on the Tournament of the Sources, also rules. Going into the second half of this season, my central concern was that the Tournament of the Sources storyline would be too derivative of the Tournament of Elements. And thankfully, after having watched the season, I can say that that concern didn't come to pass at all. Tournament of the Sources and Tournament of Elements are definitely similar, but they're different in one big way. Chen's Tournament of Elements was a sham designed to get him all the elemental powers, whilst the Tournament of the Sources is a legitimate competition. Also, an incredibly cool lore detail that this season reveals is that Chen got the idea for his scam Tournament of Elements after hearing about the legend of the Tournament of Sources. So yeah, there is an actual in-canon reason for why these are so similar. Straight up stealing the idea for his tournament from an old legend is so on brand for Chen, man. And whilst both of these tournaments do end up being rigged against the ninja and become a part of a greater conspiracy, Nefarious actions aren't the primary reason for the existence of the Tournament of the Sources. Once the Games Master Roby finds out about the rigging of the games, something is actually done about it. Unlike the Tournament of Elements, which is just a scam designed to be rigged and to give Chen all the elemental powers. So yeah, these two plots are definitely similar, and the Ninjago crew did run the risk of being too derivative of Season 4, but I think through some very smart writing choices, they avoided that. That all being said though, man, that race in the middle of the tournament sucked. I've seen a lot of people calling it useless filler, and that I don't agree with. This race existed to get Arin and Raz alone in the same room together to progress their dynamic. Plot-wise, it has a very important reason to be in the season. It's just the actual scene itself is very flat and boring to me. Minus a couple spits of poisonous venom, the race basically is just the ninja driving in a straight line, and it's really uninspired. Which is especially crazy to me, because other than this one scene, the quality of the visuals and the animation in Dragons Rising Season 2 is nothing short of incredible. Dragons Rising Season 1 massively upgraded the quality of Ninjago's visuals, but it did come at the cost of the fight choreography being slightly worse than the prior 11-minute era. However, with Dragons Rising Season 2, we have the exact same visual quality as Season 1, but we've now returned to the levels of fight choreography we had in the 11-minute seasons, making Dragons Rising's visual style the best Ninjago has ever looked in every single way now. One of the big highlights of this season for me was how it handled Lloyd. Interestingly, he goes through two character arcs at the same time, and they are both great, and some of the best character work he's ever received since the Oni trilogy. These two character arcs are really cool to me because they're both separate arcs but also link together really well. Like, I can't imagine having one of Lloyd's character arcs in this season without having the other as well. The first of these two character arcs is about Lloyd overcoming his fear of failing his students and not being able to live up to his role as Master Wu's successor. The character arc where finally, after 9 years of waiting from Ninjago fans, Lloyd finally accepts his role as a full-blown master to the ninja team. Not just a teacher, not a temporary master in training, but a full-blown ninja master. Hell yes. This is such a long overdue character development for Lloyd, and I'm really happy that they've pushed him into this direction. In this season, Lloyd decides to rise up to the challenge of being a full-blown ninja master, despite his fear of failing his loved ones. And he isn't perfect. Under his watch, the Forbidden Five get away, and Arin abandons the ninja team. But Lloyd doesn't let that failure consume him. At the end of the season, the Motion Dragon shows Lloyd that whilst he didn't do a perfect job, he has still done great things as a master and shouldn't give up. He disrupted the plans of the Forbidden Five, protected the Source Dragons, and coached one of his students to winning the Tournament of the Sources. He's still got a long way to go as a ninja master yet, but he's already taken the most important steps, and isn't letting his fear and self-doubt consume him. Which rules. But that is just one half of Lloyd's character development here. The second half of Lloyd's character development in this season takes this line from the first season:
"Taking my power is dangerous. Your life may change forever,"
and rolls with it, showing us that the permanent change to Lloyd's life mentioned by the Source Dragon was the introduction of conduit visions. After taking the Source Dragon of Energy's power, Lloyd started to process time like a Source Dragon does, being able to vividly envision what came before and what might come to be. These distressing visions of possible futures would go on to ravage Lloyd's life and mental health. And watching this season for the first time, it was abundantly clear what this is. The story of Lloyd's conduit visions is an allegory for a mental health disorder. I think this story most closely links to an anxiety disorder, but the allegory is super broad and can fit to a whole bunch of things, which I think is great. I think what makes the allegory really work is the fact that Lloyd's visions aren't guaranteed futures. It's an incredibly vivid look into a future that might come to be. Might being the key word. Anything and everything seen in these visions is subject to change. Just like in real life with intrusive and distressing thoughts, nothing we envision in them is a guaranteed outcome. At the end of the day, Lloyd is in control of his own destiny. We are in control of our own destinies. As the season goes on, Lloyd realizes that there's no getting rid of these thoughts and visions. Whether he likes it or not, these are going to be a part of his life forever. But that doesn't mean they have to ruin his life. In Dragons Rising Season 2's mid-season finale, in what is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful character moments in the entire Ninjago franchise, Lloyd begins to accept the presence of the visions in his life and stops trying to fight them when they come, allowing him to not get rid of or overcome the visions, but exist in tandem with them, allowing them to flow past him whenever they show up. What I think is really great about this plot point is that even after this revelatory moment Lloyd has in episode 10, the visions are still affecting him. Not as badly as they were in the first 10 episodes because he's learned to cope with them better now, but that isn't the be-all end-all. Mental health is not a one-time obstacle to overcome. It's a constant struggle that needs to be maintained over time. And I think it's really great to see Ninjago reflecting that so realistically and truthfully through one of its protagonists. The story they've told of Lloyd here is a very relatable and emotional one. I'm really glad Ninjago had the guts to go all the way with it, and I think a lot of viewers are going to feel very seen by this. Lloyd in Dragons Rising Season 2, across both of his major plot threads in this season, is absolutely spectacular, and I think what they did with his character here stands toe-to-toe with the likes of Sons of Garmadon and Hunted as some of the best Lloyd character work in franchise history. Another aspect of this season I really like is Bonzel. If you went back in time to when Dragons Rising Season 1 came out and told me that the joke one-note skeleton character from the Land of Lost Things was going to become one of Ninjago's greatest side characters, I would not have believed you at all. But Dragons Rising Season 2 happened and here we are. Season 2 turned Bonzel from being a joke character who occasionally delivers a one-liner about bones into this incredibly sympathetic character who goes on a really well-written journey of self-actualization. I really felt for Bonzel in this season, man. The reveal that she isn't just a skeleton, but in fact a millennia-old spell designed to banish evil, that went on to gain sentience and wander the realms for centuries, is such a completely out-of-pocket reveal, and it caught me so off guard on the first watch. But it works, man. It really works. I really felt for her when she was describing the loneliness she felt wandering the realms for all that time. And the flashback to her conversation with Wu where he encourages her to take a physical form, I think is one of the best scenes in all of Ninjago. It's so emotional and well written. Bonzel's subsequent journey finding her family within the Finders, reuniting with the sorceress that created her, and affirming that she is a real and valid person, even whilst Raz and his army are just completely abusing her, was so well executed. Bonzel is a truly excellent character, and I really hope she continues to have a more prominent role in later Dragons Rising seasons. And speaking of the Bonzel subplot, I thought pairing her up with Zane and Cole was such a great choice. Zane and Cole have always been one of my favorite Ninjago duos, and this season is no exception. Zane and Cole's interactions here are really funny and endearing as always. Although on the topic of Zane, we need to talk about him. In Season 1, I found him entertaining and inoffensive, but I wasn't really ready to form a full-on opinion on Dragons Rising Zane until they started addressing the Flanderization. In case you don't know, over the years I feel like the Ninjago writers have overemphasized the robot side of Zane's character, and in the present day it's basically consumed his entire personality. And whilst I think the Blood Moon half of this season is just kind of more inoffensive Zane content, which is fine by me because that's the part with the Zane and Cole subplot, the way Zane is written in the Tournament of the Sources half of the season can be pretty rough sometimes. Case in point, this one line of dialogue, which I think perfectly represents everything wrong with modern Zane.
My social encounter algorithm registered high levels of cringe.
Sadly, this is a real line. I can only be so mad about the way Zane's been written here because the Ninjago production team has acknowledged it's a misstep and is going to be endeavoring to put it right in future Dragons Rising seasons. But still, overly robotic lines from Zane like this have always been painful. Also, please, good God, never let Zane say the word cringe again. Thankfully, Cole is consistently fantastic all the way through the season. I am kind of annoyed that he never revealed what happened after he followed Wu's ghost in Season 1 here. He even mentions that he'll tell Geo and the Finders what happened later, but just never does. So I'm really hoping they do elaborate on this further in future seasons. But beyond that, I think Cole is written really well. He's a really great supportive rock for the rest of the characters, particularly to Bonzel.
Maybe it would have been better if I'd just dissolved after all.
No, you are loved and needed. We'll find a way to protect you.
Has a great dynamic with Geo, and in what was a really pleasant surprise, we got a little more insight into the history of his mother Lillian this season, which is awesome. It wasn't anything earth-shatteringly massive, but it was really nice. Also, whilst we're talking about Cole and Zane, I liked the drama stuff in episode 6. I thought it was a lot of fun. And speaking of the original ninja team, Kai is the absolute GOAT in this season. And I think Dragons Rising Season 2 is the single greatest portrayal of this character in franchise history. This season takes the father-daughter dynamic between Kai and Wildfire set up by the first season and really rolls with it. highlighting just how well Kai is slipping into the role of being a father figure to Wildfire and a mentor to the younger ninja. Where Lloyd is a more wise and reserved mentor, Kai is bombastic and fun and really understands these kids, but also is able to lock in and be mature when needed, offering the kids genuinely great life advice. In Season 2, arguably more so than ever, you can just see how passionate Kai is about being there for his friends and loved ones, with that drive to protect his friends ultimately being the thing that allows him to tap into Rising Dragon and fight Cinder. His banishment to Neverspace with Bonzel in the second half of the season is also a really great subplot, showing us that even when faced with an absolutely impossible, inescapable situation, Kai never gives up and will find a way to get out and help people. And his grand return from Neverspace in the season finale, oh my god man, it's so cool. And also, the plot about getting Kai out of Neverspace was really good and well built up to, making Kai's escape from the inescapable prison dimension actually feel earned, and not like a total Deus Ex Machina was a really impressive feat on the part of the writers. The character of Kai has well and truly hit his stride in Dragons Rising, and I am so excited to see what direction the show takes him in next. And whilst we're talking about Kai, there is no better time to start talking about his student Wildfire, who continues to be one of my favorite characters in Dragons Rising. The way Wildfire is written is interesting to me because she doesn't have one dedicated character arc in this season, but a bunch of small plot threads that all tie into the overarching idea of Wildfire becoming a more well-adjusted person. In this season, she learns about how injuries work and eventually heal. She does everything she can to care for Egalt after finding out he suffers from a degenerative disease. She experiences grief and starts letting herself be more vulnerable, letting on to Nia that she does miss Kai after he got banished to Neverspace, and even starts dating people, which is something I especially could have never imagined Season 1 Wildfire doing. This character is still super entertaining and development-wise has come so far since her introduction in Season 1. And seeing as I mentioned Egalt just now, what an amazing character. We didn't see very much of him, but I was loving every single scene we got of this guy. He's such a sympathetic character. When we first meet Egalt, he comes across as a massive pessimistic douche. But as the season goes on and we find out he has a condition called the wasting sickness, things start to make a bit more sense. He doesn't snap at the people around him because he's a vindictive dragon or anything. He does it because he's in pain. When series writer Doc Wyatt was asked about Egalt's storyline, he said that wasting sickness was intended as an allegory for real-life degenerative diseases such as cancer, and the impact that a diagnosis like that can have on a patient and their loved ones. And I think they really nailed the allegory. The way Egalt and all of the other characters react to his condition is really authentic and well written. Egalt slowly starting to warm up to the ninja as he realizes that their warrior's actually capable of continuing his legacy after he passes on, and the ninja starting to warm up to Egalt at the same time as they realize what he's going through with his sickness and start taking care of him in any way they can. It's just a really good storyline, man. I've really felt for Egalt. Rontu is also a really great character. I don't like her nearly as much as Egalt because I don't think she's as deep of a character, but I like Rontu a lot, and would be more than happy to see the writers flesh her out further in future seasons. Speaking of important dragon characters, the Ninjago crew has made the choice to age baby Ryu up into a teenage dragon between seasons. And what a great choice that was, man. When I first heard about it, I was a bit iffy on the idea, but seeing the final product, I'm sold. As a more grown and mature dragon, Ryu is just way easier to empathize with as a character now. Where Ryu in Season 1 was like if one of the main ninja was a little puppy, Ryu in Season 2 was like if a big goofy dog was a ninja. Having grown up, Ryu is way more involved in the story now, also training to learn Spinjitzu alongside Sora. And also, the grown-up Ryu design is just way better at showing emotion than the baby one was. Like when Ryu started crying after his mum was killed, I really felt for the poor guy. Out of Arin, Sora, and Ryu is definitely still the character that connected with me the least, just on the basis that he can't speak. But Ryu continues to be a great character, and I think aging him up was a really good decision. Jay, I've noticed, is a pretty big point of contention amongst Ninjago fans in this season. Some people think Ninjago fumbled Jay's return here, whilst other people really like it. And I think the problem here is largely one of misplaced expectations. Ninjago fans were looking at this really cool evil Jay design for months leading up to the release of these episodes. And I guess in a lot of people's heads that must have given them the idea that the show was doing a lot of build up to this. But if you actually watch the show, it really wasn't. You know, it's not like an Only Lloyd situation where they spent multiple episodes and a good chunk of the season's marketing building up to it. The reveal that Jay joined Raz's team was very much supposed to be an out-of-left-field surprise moment that had minimal build-up. And I think the fact that Evil Jay was in the sets let this surprise down somewhat, because now Ninjago fans are going in with months of preconceived expectations for a full-blown Jay plotline in Season 2, where in reality, what the show was trying to do was set up Jay as a villain. When people say that Season 2 fumbled the Evil Jay arc, I don't think it's a fair criticism, because the Evil Jay arc has only just started. What we saw in Season 2 was set up for it. Again, comparing to Only Lloyd for a second, because I've seen a lot of people comparing these two plotlines. When Only Lloyd is quickly thrown away at the end of Crystallized, that wasn't set up. That was the intentional ending of a character arc. Whereas with Evil Jay, this was set up for a future story. Now, if that future storyline ends up falling short, then by all means, yes, criticize that. But saying they wasted Evil Jay when all we have at the minute is setup, I think is kind of unfair. Another thing I've seen people say is, well, in Season 1, you said Season 2 was going to be more about Jay, and now you're saying it's going to be Season 3? Goalpost moving much? Which, Dragons Rising is a multi-season long storyline. I get that Ninjago fans are very used to the classic show, which would set something up, pay it off really quickly, and then immediately move on to the next thing. But it is actually perfectly normal and even good for shows to build up plotlines across multiple seasons. We aren't saying wait for more seasons because we're goalpost moving. We're saying wait for more seasons because Dragons Rising is actually taking time to build up its stories, which I think is a good thing. It makes the show feel more interconnected and coherent. But putting the fandom discourse aside now, how actually is that aforementioned setup? Is it any good? And my opinion on it is I think it's fine. My favorite part of the Evil Jay stuff in this season is how Nia reacts to it, who, just real quick, I think is written pretty well in this season. She's a great character like she is in most Ninjago installments. And I really love how leading up to the Jay reveal, we really get a sense of how much Nia is torn up over missing Jay. And then her devastated reaction to the actual reveal of what happened to Jay, I think is really well done. I felt really bad for her in these final few episodes, and I think that is what really sells the Evil Jay stuff for me. As for Jay himself, I think he's fine, like I said. The concepts at play here are all really good. What with Jay having lost his memories and used the wolf mask to shatter his goodness. The best way I can describe his characterization here is that he's definitely Jay, but it's like a what-if scenario for if Jay went down a different path in life, and I think that's a really cool concept. So overall, I'm fine with Evil Jay here. I don't think it's the best part of the season at all, although I maybe do think they were trying a bit too hard to make him seem tough and scary when he said, "I will always hate you" to Nia. I think it's his eyes flashing red whilst he says it that does it for me. That really takes me out of the moment. But I don't think they outright messed him up like some people say they did. If we want to talk about Wolf Clan members that I do think were underdeveloped and fumbled, beyond the actual Wolf Clan soldiers themselves, who we know literally nothing about, not even what they are or how Raz found them, then we need to look no further than the new Master of Smoke, Cinder, which is a shame because there are a ton of things I like about Cinder. I think his design and voice acting are really good. I think the basic building blocks of his characterization are a lot of fun, basically being a mix of Moro and Topher Grace's Eddie Brock.
She's unconscious? Aw, too bad. She'll miss my sweet shatter spin.
And I think he does slot into the story well as being a big fish in a small pond bully who's way too obsessed with strength. But beyond the very basic stuff, I know nothing about him. Compare him to Jordana, for example, who I think is a really great character in every way. Jordana joined Raz in the pursuit of strength because she has a desperate need to feel seen by other people due to the fact that she was largely overlooked by everyone she knew for all of her life. But in joining Raz, she bit off way more than she could chew, leading her to ultimately get possessed by someone way scarier than Raz, which causes her to realize how insane the direction she's taking is. Jordana is a well fleshed out secondary villain who has a complete arc. Who is Cinder? I wish I could tell you, given that I just spent 20 episodes watching him, but beyond him being a bit cocky, I still have no idea. Nokt, Rox, and the rest of the Forbidden Five are really interesting to me. I can't really say too much about them yet because we have barely seen that much of them. I think Season 3 is going to be the season where they truly take center stage as the villains. But from what we've seen in their introduction in this season so far, I'm liking them. I think it's cool just how depraved and cruel this group is. Like, just that one flashback scene showing them committing atrocities and war crimes to Raz's ancestors does so much to sell them to me as an intimidating threat. Like, Nokt literally calls this tiger he captured a souvenir. That's so messed up. And now that they've introduced the characters and sold them as a threat, I'm excited to see how Season 3 builds on them as actual characters. Also, dude, their designs, Rox's especially, are really cool. What Season 2 did with Sora was a pretty pleasant surprise for me. Not because I disliked her character beforehand or anything, but because she just came off of a big character arc of self-discovery in season 1. So I wasn't sure how much material she'd actually be getting this time around. But she got a lot of cool stuff here. I really enjoyed her continued storyline of learning to be a ninja, now learning spinjitzu and other more advanced fighting techniques, and Sora straight up winning the Tournament of the Sources was a really satisfying payoff to all of the character development she's had so far. Sora has really come a long way. I really like how she's starting to become more empathetic towards Jordana as well. The scene where she apologizes for overlooking her in particular is great. There is big potential for a character dynamic between these two, and I really hope they continue capitalizing on it like this. But what I really appreciated about Sora in this season is her relationship to Arin. In season 1, Arin was the wide-eyed golden student to Lloyd, while Sora was pessimistic and not making any progress. This character dynamic is really interesting to me now because season 2 has effectively flipped it. With time, it's turned out that Sora is the golden student whilst Arin is the one spiraling and not making any progress. In reaction to seeing Arin spiral like this, Sora fakes Arin's object spinjitzu using her powers, so he thinks he's making more progress than he is. Sora definitely did a bad thing here, but it's something that she did for good reasons, and I think that's a really interesting direction for the character. But the biggest reason why I like this story choice is that it's a perfect catalyst for my favorite part of season 2. The dynamic between Arin and Lord Raz. Arin and Raz are characters that I really enjoyed in Dragons Rising Season 1, but Season 2 has cemented them as some of my favorite Ninjago characters of all time. Let's start off by talking about Arin. In Season 1, Arin is portrayed as an everyman who is able to keep up with the ninja despite lacking an elemental power, being able to properly manage his doubts and insecurities. But at the end of that season, Arin gets an incredibly brief look at his missing parents, which Season 2 makes abundantly clear sent him spiraling. Those doubts and insecurities that he was managing in Season 1 are now inescapable for him in Season 2, as briefly seeing his parents in the Mergequake battle made him sure of what he wanted from life. Find his parents and make them proud of the great ninja he's become. Keeping up with the other ninja isn't enough anymore. He needs to be constantly improving, and in his eyes, he isn't. This season makes the incredibly bold choice to take Arin's story about keeping up with the others despite his disadvantages, and turns it into a story about how self-doubt and desperation slowly consume Arin, and poison him against everything he loves and fights for. I was expecting Arin to have problems with his self-doubt in this season, but was I expecting them to get so bad that they cause him to forsake his best friend and childhood idol, joining his worst enemy out of pure desperation to find his parents? I was not, but oh my god, it rules, man. Arin's relationship with his self-doubt as he fails to live up to the person he wants to be more and more throughout the season, I think is one of the most realistic and relatable struggles that any of the main Ninjago ninja have ever went through. And making Arin's character development in this season even more engaging is his villain, Lord Raz. Lord Raz, from what we've seen of him in Season 1 and especially his screen time in Season 2, has cemented himself as one of the greatest Ninjago villains of all time in my opinion. As I've mentioned before in previous videos about Raz and my Season 1 review, the presentation of this character is impeccable. He growls and snorts like a tiger does. He runs on all fours in the more intense moments, and he shares traits with real-life tigers, such as natural night vision. You can tell the Ninjago crew have put a lot of effort into really going all the way with the fact that Raz is a tiger, and I think that's awesome. One of my favorite aspects of Raz in Season 1 was his cunning personality, and how effectively he was able to manipulate others. Season 2 has taken this aspect of Raz and absolutely rolled with it, making the central hero-villain conflict of this season center around Raz's slow manipulation of Arin. In Season 2, it becomes very apparent that Raz manipulates a very specific kind of person. The type of people who view themselves as vulnerable and weak. In episode 9 of the season, we come to find out that this is because Raz himself comes from a very similar position of weakness. Before having met his master, Raz has a very specific kind of target for his manipulation. And Arin, with all of his self-worth issues that we've seen so far, fits that bill perfectly. Arin and Raz really aren't all that different. They both lack elemental power, and they've both dedicated their lives, Raz absolutely knowingly, Arin maybe not, to the pursuit of strength after having come from a place of weakness. Raz's manipulation of Arin is so thorough and well thought out that I'm even having trouble separating the truth from the lies. Does Raz actually know where Arin's parents are? He claims to know everything that Jay does, and also says that he knows the secrets of the universe, but he never gives a completely direct answer about the parents. So I honestly have no idea if he's leading Arin on here. And whilst we're on this topic, we need to talk about the most earth-shattering thing Raz tells Arin. Arin. Master Wu caused the merge, and Raz's whole goal is to reverse it. Raz later tells Rox that he did omit some of his intentions from this conversation, but does that completely debunk wanting to reverse the merge? I think the fact that Raz has not only the in-show characters, but me as a viewer questioning everything I know about him really shows how effectively his manipulation was written. The way Raz's plan goes downhill at the end of the season is really well executed as well. Near the end of Raz's plan, he got really big-headed and tried his hand manipulating Nokt of the Forbidden Five, someone who doesn't have the insecurities that Raz targets. And because of this, Raz's attempts completely blow up in his face, as Nokt and Rox manipulate him back. What's great about this plot point is that it really demonstrated to me that Raz is really good at a load of things, but he is not invincible. More importantly, Nokt's betrayal of Raz sets the stage for the ending cliffhanger of the season, which sees Arin abandoning his fellow ninja to try and find his parents with Raz. Dragons Rising Season 2 ends us out on a super ominous scene of Arin and Raz alone. After Raz lost his army and Arin abandoned the ninja, these two are now all each other have left in the world, which is such a bold and interesting spot to end the season out on. I think those are the words I would use to describe Dragons Rising Season 2 as a whole. Bold and interesting. Last year, I ended out my review of Dragons Rising's first season by asking Ninjago to not get complacent and continue to push the envelope of this world and characters in future seasons. Dragons Rising Season 2 has not only fulfilled this request for me, but absolutely demolished it, with some of the best, boldest, and most well thought out storytelling in the entire history of this franchise. Like I said at the start of this video, I don't think Ninjago has hit its new peak just yet, but I think Dragons Rising Season 2 has brought us incredibly close to that point, and has left me with a sense of complete, unfiltered optimism for the future of Ninjago. I loved Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 2.
Any questions?
Yeah, I don't get it. So,
Like, can the ninja understand the dragon, or what's the deal with that?